time is now. Pull this world from the depths of the system's greed. As a man I've seen the trials of those that lost themselves between these lines of fault, laid by those working so damn hard to control us all. Try to break our minds with their sad news on the TV all the time. Still we sip the wine. We're wasting life and failing to realize that we're enslaved, kept oppressed by mental shackles and subliminal chains. We cry in vain, forced to grow in a broken world where criminals reign. Won't you help us now? We keep telling ourselves that everything's working out, but we're breaking down. Inside our souls are crumbling to the sound of emptiness as we stand here waiting at the edge of the abyss. All my family and friends, they got us choked up, lined up and fooled with their bag of drinks. Instead they feed us trash. They're selling cigarettes just to bury us in the ash, and we're growing old, living lives fabricated from the bones of a tired world. From the bones of a dying world. Say you can be a star, get a job, work hard, man, you can drive that fancy car, take all the pills you want. If Doc says it's okay, man, how can you be wrong? Let's have another shot. We'll drink ourselves stupid and head on out to the lot. Go on, drive the car. And our doped up minds got us thinking we ain't far from home. They got us thinking we ain't far from home. Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly what they want. Emptiness to consume us in the depths of the abyss. All my family and friends, they got us doped up, lined up and ready with the final fix. Instead they feed us trash. They're selling cigarettes just to bury us in the ash, and we're growing old, living lives fabricated from the bones of a dying world. From the bones of a dying world, yeah, yeah, trash. They're selling cigarettes just to bury us in the ash, and we're growing old, living lives fabricated from the bones of a dying world. Now you've heard a man say I don't give. Fade from the window pane as I look out to the west. I see the sunset in these evening skies, and I see more than they televise. And I know this ain't a joke. Somehow they realize the show, but still we think we are free, pardon me. We're still too blind to see, pardon me. And I know there's more to life that brings the joyous times and the joyous things that I fear I'm missing somehow. When I wake, I see glaciers falling from mountainsides. Yes, I see the melting away of liberty's years. They're so violent and glowing, flowing. Now the tides are rising, smoke-filled skies, auburn nights. I never thought I'd understand all the cracks in this cement, but as I drive over these city streets, I feel the presence of the dead. Unbeknownst to me, I see there's more to life than to my eyes meet. Oh, the truth is hidden away, but in the end, everything breaks down. Yeah, in the end, all the guilty will be found. When all the decadence exposed, when it's time, heads will roll. For all the reasons that we've got to revolt. For all the reasons that we've got to revolt. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Somehow I feel I know, like I found the cure for the world's problems, like somehow we'll save the day tomorrow. But there's no way to know anything for sure. All you see ain't all there is. In the end, old time will tell once the time is spent. I see the colors splatter on the canvas red, and I see your face piercing through the veil between this world and infinity. I've never been much of an artist now, but I see the truth is pouring out, yeah, from the depths of these jokers' paintings. Now I see all my dreams unfold before me. Yes, I see an end to this whitewash story. Oh, the rabbit hole is calling for me. Society, man, it fucking bores me.
All right. Good evening. It is just about 8 p.m., if it's not 8 p.m. on the dot. Tonight, we're going to discuss, we're going to get real tonight. We're going to get real about what I believe is going to be the end of the fourth age of humanity. And what I mean by that, I'll get into it. But it's not the end of the world is what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say that the world is going to end, that everyone's going to die, though that can, that can happen at any point, any time. However, what I mean by the end of the age is the end of the world that you have come and grown accustomed to. Stick around. All right, aloha and good evening, my Lona. I've been having a couple of these already. So, aloha, ma'ahana pono. Good evening. How are we doing? So, we're going to get into it. Let's start with Solon. He was a Greek philosopher. As a matter of fact, he was considered one of the seven wisest men, or one of the nine wisest men of the time. And Solon is important because he is a bridge between Plato and the time before the Library of Alexandria was destroyed. You see, we don't actually know what caused the Library of Alexandria to fall apart, what caused its inevitable end. Most people believe it was a fire. And it wasn't the only library in the world of antiquity at the time. However, it was one of the most important, if not the most important, because it was most likely the largest library, probably even today standards, it would be huge. It had nearly a million, probably more than that, books that spanned much older than the times that we've been taught in school. Solon learned about Atlantis in the Library of Alexandria. He also learned about the simple fact that we were in the current, this is the same age, the fourth age of humankind, the fourth age of civilization, and that there were three ages before ours, and the Atlantean age was the third age of man that ended when there was a great calamity about 11,600 years ago, which ended that civilization. Before that was the Lemurian age that lasted however many years before it ended in calamity. Before that was the Hyperborean age. And it sounds a lot like science fiction, but it's not. You see, we've been around for 130,000 years, yet we only have 7,000 years of recorded history. You keep telling yourself that. You see, this age, I can't tell you it's different than all of the last ages because I wasn't there. But I can tell you that the end of our age has come. And what I mean by the end of our age, I mean that the end of the world as you have come to know it, where law and order no longer reigns, when chaos will ensue, when things, the foundations, the structures, the infrastructures, everything around you that was a constant will crumble. And it will be through a combination of things you are seeing now all across the world. I'm going to show some clips here on Twitter. And what this is in reference to, if you don't already know, is about the murder of a black man named George Floyd. This happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And you see, I'm not entirely sure that the people would have responded this aggressively had there not been just a slew of other things already piled on top of people, like the stay-at-home order, the coronavirus, the economy falling down, the food shortages, inflation, deflation. All of these things that are occurring is just stacking upon the back of the everyday man. And at a certain point, all it takes is a straw. Just that little insee amount of weight for that man to shrug it all off and say no more. We're seeing that now. I'm going to show you some videos on Twitter. This is over the last 36 hours, and this is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute my mic, and then I am going to play these. And then I might stop it at a certain point and then dissect. So here we go. Say that. All right. So what you see here in this part, this is where the protesters has turned violent. Now I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. It didn't start out violent. I don't care what the mainstream media is going to paint with these people about turning, being violent rioters in a protest. It didn't start out that way. It started out when the 3rd Precinct started firing tear gas on people that were holding up signs, yelling and screaming, but otherwise peaceful. The moment it happened, this happened. They got to a point where they invaded the police yard of the 3rd precinct. And we'll get back into it now. So I'm going to show this.
Welcome to the air, nigga.
Now, do I condone this? No. Do I condemn it? No. That is a result when you introduce a police state where they don't give two shits about you, the people that are supposed to, serve and protect. And I don't hop on the bandwagon of fuck the police, because I understand that the vast majority of police are good people. But I also understand that the vast majority of the police, it attracts a certain type of mind, a certain type of power-hungry individual. Even a good person can be corrupted by being in the police, because it gives you this air of authority that you feel somehow you're above the law you're meant to protect. So instead of protecting and serving us, you're arresting and killing us. It's not just black people, it's white people too. Yet this happens more often than not with black people than it does with white people. This guy was held down by his neck, and it was filmed. Now, look, had I been there, I'd have drop kicked that motherfucker off. I'd have risked it, because at a certain point you could tell he was killing them. Everyone's just standing around watching. But what about those people? What about the person that filmed? I'm glad that person filmed it. Why were they just filming it? At a certain point, what you just saw is going to be across this country. And it won't be just because of a political or racism or police killing. It'll be because there's no food. It'll be because these infrastructures that we've relied on shut down. You'll see this. You'll start seeing it in droves. It won't just be this. Take this footage I just showed you and take away George Floyd's killing, and I can put in anything, because that's about what it's going to look like, only it's going to get worse. We're going to look at a couple more of these. So let me go back and go to my channel. All right. So this is another thing they're doing, right? They started hitting people with tear gas and with rubber bullets. Let me go ahead and share this. I'm going to mute my mic. 1 second.
This is America. This is America. Under my
Now, I was in the Army from 2004 to 2007. I was nuclear, biological, and chemical. I was very specifically Lima 5, which means I was the Special Forces of Chemical. We had to do tear gas. We call it CS gas in the Army, but it's tear gas. Now, we have to go in CS chambers at least once a year as a soldier. But as an NBC, we have to do it every 3 months. I got to where I could just about smoke a cigarette in a tear gas room, no mask, nothing. You get exposed to it enough, you get used to it. However, if you've never been tear gas, which I have to say probably most of you have not, it ain't pretty. It fucks your world up. You go blind, you can't breathe. Mucus comes out. I mean, you got shit coming out of your eyes, your mouth, your nose. It's a surprise you don't have anything coming out of your ears. It debilitates you. You can't see, you can't focus, you can't think. It's a great way. That's why they use it to suppress riots. But look, you can fight through it too. If you get over the initial shock of that and realize that this shit's only going to be in your system for a little while, eventually, here's what the cops don't want you to know, is eventually you get used to it. I'm talking about within the same setting. You get constantly bombarded by CS gas. At a certain point, you will adapt to it. Trust me, I know. I've spent hours in a CS chamber gas, getting constantly hit with it. At a certain point, even with little to no tolerance for it, you adapt to it. It becomes easier to focus, easier to breathe. It's not a picnic, but the hopes is that initial blast of that getting is what disrupts people, because it's the end of the world, because most people don't experience it. They don't experience that on a normal basis, getting hit with CS gas. And so at a certain point, it becomes ineffective. And you can see at a certain point, it becomes ineffective. So we're going to show one more here. Let me go ahead and get that up. I always do that, damn it. All right, here's this right here. Now this, hold on. This is footage from the Minneapolis Police Department, 3rd Precinct. And these are, I mean, this is literally going on within the last 5 or 6 hours. It's been a 36-hour ordeal, but let me mute my mic. Okay, so as you can see, at a certain point, CS gas will become ineffective. Rubber bullets will become ineffective. I'll tell you why. Because look, I've been hit with rubber bullets. I've been tased. Look, we do shit in the military. You know, this wasn't no official training. I've just been hit by rubber bullets. It hurts, and it's meant to sting you and shock you. That's all it is a shock value. However, if you are pissed off enough, angry enough, the more you get hit with rubber bullets, the more it pisses you off. Now, where am I going with this? If CS gas is ineffective and rubber bullets are ineffective, the militarized police that we have in this country have a thing called escalation, which means when they meet a force with a certain level of lethality, and that force is no longer adequate to contain and sustain the situation, they escalate it. Well, what's above tear gas, water hose, and rubber bullets? It's the real thing. They'll start firing on people. Now, are they going to do that in Minneapolis? I don't know. But when it's like that all across the country, and albeit all across the world, because we're already seeing this all over the world, all over the world. And it's been happening for some time. There's been massive protests, especially over the last 18 months. There has been massive civil unrest across the world. It is just being exasperated by this pandemic, by this virus, by our forced economic shutdown, by our artificial shutdown of our food supply, our natural shortages of food. Look, it's going to get nasty. It's the end of the 4th age of humanity. Nothing will ever be the same. And I hope I'm wrong. But if I'm not, then nothing about your life will ever be the same. And I'm not just talking about getting a vaccine so that you can go back to work. I'm not talking about the government becoming an Orwellian state. I mean, it's the end of an age. Societies will break down. They will collapse. Do you know why? Because history shows us it happens every so often. Do you know what happened when Rome fell? Now, Rome was the last America in terms of empire size, military bases in almost every country that was known, right? No other country has come close to the Roman Empire, save America. In fact, we are an empire. We're an empire in decadence. We've stretched ourselves like butter, too thin on bread. It's not sustainable. When you live on the top, it is only a matter of time before your people become gluttonous fools, which is what the American people have become. And other countries have emulated us. We've infected Eastern countries. Go anywhere in a major city in Japan, and you'll feel like you're in New York City. It's all one city. You see, when Rome fell, when it finally came tumbling down. It sent the world back 400 years in technology and in way of life. It's called the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages are a direct consequence of Rome falling. We went back in time. Now, what happens when America falls? It's a little bit different this time because we have this little concept called globalization. And for people that think that we aren't already globalized, that we haven't already been globalized since the 40s, take another look. We are so interconnected in a way that has never existed in history. Never. Rome was in charge of everything, but it wasn't reliant on everything in the same way that we're reliant on everything, because Rome had complete control of these areas. It was an empire. There was no separate governments. There was no, EU that was, in a trade agreement. When Rome took over a place, they took over a place. They took over the government. They took over the people. They took over the resources. See, we don't do that except on a rare occasion when we need oil or something like that. Then we'll make up an excuse to go in and take a resource. But we normally fight wars based off of idealism. And those are the worst type of wars to fight. And that's the wars that we fight today. But make no mistake, we're going to very quickly go back to fighting wars over resources because they're depleting. Now, what happens if America falls? We crumble. We erupt into mass chaos. Government can no longer maintain stability and control. Every other country, like dominoes, will fall right behind us. Just like that. Because I would say even your most educated don't really understand, I don't really understand just how integrated we all are now, today, in this world. You saw it. The moment China shut down, it crippled industry in the rest of the world. Immediately, GDP started falling. The moment they opened up, everyone else was shut down and GDP started falling. When one country goes, it will take other countries with it. But in terms of this pyramid scheme of globalization, we are literally the foundation. That doesn't mean that we produce everything, but we are the one that binds this illusion all together. When we fall, China's not just going to step up and be like, all right, I'm number one now. No, they're going to fall with us. And what comes after that is unknown. I can't tell you. Whatever age starts after that, but there's going to be a lot of war. There's going to be a lot of death. I'm not here to paint you a rosy picture. You can put your paintbrushes away. I'm here to tell you the truth. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen a week from now, though it could. But you will look back today. What is it? 26th, 27th of May, 2020. And this will be a memory that you will share with younglings years and years from now, as a day when every day was just monotonous, every day was normal, nothing was going on. And then all of a sudden, a day not too far from that day that you tell them about, everything changed. And I can't tell you what that is. Can't tell you how glorious or how detrimental it will be for us. But our age of living is done. We've had a good run. Now, whatever comes next comes next. Could be better, could be worse. But in the interim, there's always mass chaos. Because when chaos and order is a balance, you have to maintain the balance between chaos and order. And when one takes hold, when one diminishes the other, you have worse consequences than just the balance of order and chaos to begin with. For example, if you remove chaos from chaos and order, you get supreme order, which is worse than just good old-fashioned order. When you remove order from order and chaos, you get complete and utter anarchy. It's not good either. So, how are we doing, guys? I'm gonna look at some of my comments. Let's see. Brian Griffin says, I have known cops that get drunk and wait for the day that they can draw a gun and shoot somebody. That mind frame shouldn't be a cop. Well, look, I can't speak for every cop. I can't tell you the statistics of every cop. But I do know that, for an example, being an NFL player attracts a certain type of person. You've got to be a supremely gifted athlete. B, you've got to train hard for that. But you train hard from that because you want it. It's what you want to do. In the same way, being a cop attracts a certain mindset. Usually a lot of ex-military, people that are just a little too gung-ho, that still think they're a Marine 10 years out after they get out. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Never heard more brainwashed bullshit in my life, and that's not a stab against Marines. But of the four branches, well, now there's five because we've got the Space Force. But of the four branches, the four main branches, look, the Marines are the most brainwashed. If you have an IQ that is above a certain level, they won't accept you. I applied for the Marines. They said, you're better off in the Air Force. I got rejected from the Marines because they looked at my ASVAB scores. And what it said to them is, this guy's going to question us. This guy's going to give us a problem. And they would have been right. This is not their first rodeo. When they're recruiting people, they're not new to it. They know what they're looking for. They can tell when a person's going to be a problem. They can tell, Marines, they can tell when someone is just not going to fit in. And people who are too smart for the Marines do not fit into that regime. They're brainwashed. So is Army, so is Navy. But Marines are the heaviest. I don't know why I went on that. But so the American one said that Rome fell to gluttony, greed, and orgies. Look, Rome, if that was just the case, we'd have fell 80 years ago. It was way more complicated than that. Look, Rome didn't fall overnight to begin with. Rome, what caused Rome's failure was from within. It was decadence from within. It was corruption of morals, corruption of politics, corruption, misuse of the land. They printed in their own way. They printed themselves into inflation. Their money was worth nothing. It used to be back. The denarii used to be gold, and then they switched over to it like a copper. That was denarii. It wasn't backed by gold at a certain point. They still used gold, but the denarii kind of shied away from it towards the tail end of the empire, and that's what led to its downfall. What caused the official domino effect of the collapse of the Roman Empire is when the Visigoths finally sacked Rome, which at that point it was already broken down into two parts. It was the Western Empire and the Eastern Empire, where Constantinople was the Eastern Empire and Rome was the Western. And once that happened, within a few months, most of Rome had burned down. We only know about Rome. Here's a little history. We only know about Rome because of the few monks that were able to bring out what few manuscripts they could about the history of Rome before all of that shit was burned down by the Visigoths and the Goths and any other name you can think of. They all eventually started sacking the shit out of it. So our knowledge of Rome was almost lost. Rome would have been like Atlantis had we not had those monks bring out was maybe would be equated to 100 documents about Rome. That's about what survived. 100 documents of an empire that spanned, for its time everywhere. The whole world spoke Latin then in the way that most of the world speaks English now. English is the world language. You want to be professional, you want to have a business that's going to succeed on the world level, you've got to know English more than anything else. Back then it was Latin. Everything was in Latin because the Romans spoke Latin. So there was a lot of things that caused the fall of Rome. I mean, you couldn't limit it to 20 things. It was probably 1,000 things, but there were, obviously big catalysts and small catalysts, but it all, accumulated to their fall. Kind of like what we're going through now, how we've got grand solar minimum, we've got a pandemic, we've got a pandemic, we've got a virus, we've got food shortage, we've got all of these things that are just adding up on top of our greed and gluttony and orgies and our lack of morality and our lack of principle and our lack of ability to stand up for what we believe in, because we've been fed what to believe and we believe what we've been fed to believe. Therefore, we're docile, or we fight for things that don't matter. So he also says the U.S. fiat currency is going to be our downfall. You are absolutely right there. It's not going to be the only part of our downfall, but you cannot print trillions and 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 trillions of dollars without devaluing that dollar, especially when it's not backed by anything. It's not backed by anything. It's backed by your faith in it. That's what it's backed by. Now, so long as we have faith in it, at a certain point, the Fed won't be able to control inflation. They won't be able to control deflation. It'll get out of their control. This CBCE that we have, that we target every year, which is anywhere from 1.6 to 2% of inflation, is supposed to increase every year, that's fabricated. It's been fabricated for a while. Come July, when you go get some ribs, how much do you normally pay for those ribs? $18, $19? They'll be $40. They'll be $50. They'll be $60 because of all these food shortages. And you see, the more and more we print, it adds to that. So you have food shortages on top of the devaluation of your dollar, which increases inflation of the dollar and its value, meaning you need more of it to buy something. And when you need more of something to buy that is less of something, say meat, that's why you're going to see $40 and $50, but your wages are not going to increase to match it. Riots, strikes, more precincts busted into, because make no mistake, most states are going to respond the same way that the police responded. Now, you get a group of people, white and black, but you better have some white people in this black group. Arm them. Let them protest. Police won't do a goddamn thing. They'll watch. They'll clear streets for you. But if you're a predominantly black group and you're unarmed, they'll start firing on you, surrounding you with helicopters and snipers, because you're protesting the death of someone who did not need to die. Now, when you take away that motivation for this protest and you plug in, I'm hungry, they're hungry. Where's the food? Why aren't you helping us? You said you'd help us. That's partly your fault because you relied on them in the first place. But inevitably, the failure is on them because a lot of this is manufactured. It'll be what you saw on steroids. You'll start seeing people of every color. At a certain point, you're not going to see black and white anymore. And in this one spectrum, that's a beautiful thing. We're going to see a lot of people come together that would have never even looked at each other in the street because you're both hungry. All of a sudden, race isn't so important. And that's a beautiful thing. Yet what happens because of that, and what causes them to come together and have that, is a dire situation of a lack of food. So let's see. Brian Griffin says, yes, the U.S. people are the collateral of the fiat currency system. That means we have to make iPhones for 10 cents a day when the debt is collected. Look, we can't pay this back. We've crossed the point of no return in terms of ever being able to. We will default. The moment the dollar gets destabilized as the world reserve currency. Look, welcome to Zimbabwe 2.0. So. Let's see. Murphy, how are you doing? It says it was signed in 2018, I believe. It takes 30 months after it was signed. What was it? Okay, here we go. This is what you said. That the fiat currency is about to go bye-bye. I think this is why the oil prices fell to negative. So the House Bill 5404 is going to bring back the gold dollar. think this is October. Don't quote me. I won't quote you. But so we're going to circle back to the title of the video. You know, we hear these words, the new normal, right? Where cops can come into your house and take you away. There's video of it. If you guys want to see it, I'll show it to you and we can talk about it. But this contact tracing, all of this stuff, it is going to evolve. It's not going to stay at contact tracing. It's going to get worse. But as that gets worse, everything else around that supports society will get worse and deteriorate, like our food supply. And when the collective conscious of a people in a country, when they've had enough, as divided and different as we are, there's something magical about the human unconscious. When we all have had enough, look, people will die. Anytime you want real change, and this is real talk, I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. Anytime you want real change in this world, you have to shed life for it. You have to. We got this country because we shed life. Every country that has ever been born was born because it had to shed life. Because that is the only thing, the only payment that we truly recognize to fight for something that we believe in is when life has been shed. So marching and holding up signs is not going to change this. And I'm not calling for violence. I'm just telling you that violence is coming. The vast amount of people are going to realize at a certain point that no matter how much they march, no matter how much they scream, you will be ignored. What people of that caliber see and pay attention to and respond to is unfortunately violence. Because when you get violent, they have lost their control over you. And when they lose their control over you, they don't know what to do. They go in a panic. I'll tell you a story. When I was getting out of the military, my sister had passed away, and there was a lot of shitty shit that went down. And finally, I was just like, you know what? I'm done. I had snapped. I had had enough playing the game of being a soldier. I said, put me out. You know, just get me out. My due date was coming out. I'm like, I'm not fucking working for you guys anymore. I'm done. A switch went off in my mind. I was only 21. And I'll never forget it. I was in this big office where a bunch of these E7s, a bunch of these E8s and E9s and captains and colonels and shit. And I had just gotten back from, they put me, I went to a mental institution for a month and a half. I went there on purpose, but I'll tell that story later. But there's nothing wrong with me. The moment I saw the doctor, he said, get the fuck out of my hospital. There's nothing wrong with you. So when I came back, I hadn't cut my hair. So my hair was longer. And like I said, I had snapped. I was done. And I was up there because I was waiting just to talk to my first sergeant. And some fucking like, some amped up fucking E7 who just was all about the fucking army. He was, what's wrong with your hair? Just fucking like, why is your hair out of formation? And I looked at him. I said, man, fuck you. And you should have heard the silence. All clatter stopped, right? Everybody was like, uh-oh. And these are bigwigs too, right? Because they're not used to hearing that, right? You should have seen this guy's eyes. He was like, fuck me, get a parade rest. I was like, and I fucking turned, I was like, put me up on a fucking parade rest. And he was like, he jumped back. And this badass motherfucker, he jumped back because he didn't know what to do. Because at that point, like, it wasn't that I was a badass. What it was is that I reached the point of no return. I had snapped. I was willing to commit violence. I didn't care. And the moment you don't care is the moment that all of these people, that your superiors, the ones that have all this power over you, they know that they lose that power. The moment they lose that power, they don't know what to do with you. So the command sergeant major of the whole battalion, the biggest bigwig that you can get until you go into the base level of commandment, came up and got in my face. He's like, "You got motherfucking parade dress." And I had a problem with this guy. And I looked at him. I was like, "You put me in motherfucking parade dress. Like, you put me in parade dress. Let's see how that goes down." And again, his eyes, he's looking around and he's like, "I need support. Like, what are we going to do?" Nobody's talking. Nobody's like being all military, like drill sergeant. Oh, blah, blah. They all were frozen because I had at that point become an anomaly. I'd become a wild card. They didn't know what I was going to do. They knew that they couldn't bark at me and that I would say, "Yes, sir." Something snapped. So in that same way, think about it like that. When the vast majority of people snap, when they're willing to commit violence for change, the government won't know what to do. The police won't know what to do. They'll be like, "Wait a minute, these lights, you're supposed to be scared of me and you're throwing, well, what do we do now? Do we start shooting these people?" Because the police will do it faster than the military will. As a matter of fact, if you want martial law, you already have your force in place. Almost every military across every state is already militarized. And they are more likely to fire on pawn citizens because they do it on a daily fucking basis. White, black, don't matter. They'll just kill anybody that doesn't agree with them. It just happens to be more black because so many of them are racist. That's true. I mean, you can debate it all you want, but I mean, look at the evidence. Look how many black people die every year from cops versus how many white people die every year from cops. It happens. A lot of white people die from cops, believe it or not. You'd be surprised at the numbers. But here's one of the major differences. It doesn't matter who's more. It's who gets justice. It's who gets killed versus who gets the stern talking to. How many times do you see videos of people wielding fucking machetes who are white that, they tase them? But if he was black, they'd have gunned him down in a heartbeat. And that's a fact. That's a sickness in our country that we have never gotten rid of. We've just found a better way of exhibiting it, right? But that type of consequence where it's white versus black, look, that's always existed. It's always been something versus something. There's always been racism. And so long as we continue to think in the way that we think, there will always be racism. Even if it's not with black people, we'll be racist against Chinese people here in about 10 years after we've gone to war with them. We'll be racist against them. So anyway, so Murphy says, actually, I heard more whites are killed than blacks. Thing is, white folks say, "Dumbass, you should have listened," right? It could be, but I mean, again, the disparity of the numbers isn't so much the argument. It's how many of those black people died when they didn't need to versus how many white people should have died and didn't, just based off of what they look like. And I'm not a race baiter. I don't jump on that bandwagon. Look, I just recognize that racism has always existed. I'm not condoning it. I am condemning it, but it's human nature. You can't cure that. It always exists. There's never been a time where some form of racism or some form of oppression didn't exist. There will always be a rich and there will always be a poor, and there will always be the vast amount of people in the middle to hold it all together until we have a collapse of a civilization, of an age, which I think we're coming to. And that's what this is all about. We're getting to that point now where money and jobs and doctors and lawyers and marriage license and shit like that, it's just going to go away. It's just going to, something else is going to, the America as you know it will be written as Rome, right? You'll, and again, I don't know if I'm right. I hope I'm wrong, right? So let me clarify that. I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong, right? So she said she got the crap beat out of her by 4 cops. Look, I've never had really any issues with cops, for the most part. you can debate on whether it's because I'm white or maybe it's just because I play their game. I'm not disrespectful to them because I understand they're already on a power trip. And if you just pretend your submission to them, to their authority, well, then they get a high on it, right? I've been let go of many things. However, the first time I was ever on the wrong end of the law, like without like having someone call, like I had problems as a kid. I was arrested 4 times as a teenager. 3 of them for like domestic violence, right? Just constantly getting in fights with my sister and my dad. And so, but I mean, all of those times I deserved to be arrested. Um, but the first time I was ever on the wrong side of the police was when I was in Hawaii. And I was, at that point, I had fully embraced the hippie life. We went down to a rainbow gathering, and there was about, I'd say 9 or 10 of us that were hiking back to where we lived. And this guy gave us a ride to this park and said, "You guys can stay here, and nobody's going to worry about it. You guys can camp out." So we set up our tents because we were camping down in this valley. It was kind of like a festival. And then that morning, we heard a bunch of Hawaiians. And look, Hawaiian people, they don't really like white people. They dislike white people more than they dislike any other race of people because of what we've done to their kingdom. It's still a kingdom, by the way. But anyway, the moment we heard these, we all know we need to pack up and get the fuck out of here, because if they find out, what they'll do is they'll call the police. Now, how it works in Hawaii is most of the police are Hawaiian. And if a local calls, that means someone who is Hawaiian. They'll be there in under 2 minutes. I shit you not, less than 2 minutes. Now, if you're white and you call the police, it'll take anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours. I've seen it firsthand. So we hear these 3 big old fucking Hawaiians, because where we were camped at, right on the other side of this fence was just I think it was like a maintenance warehouse and you can hear them because they're talking pigeon talk. And so we're quietly packing up. We don't want another. And some fucking idiots is like, and she starts just fucking yelling. We're like, shut the fuck up. Right. And then this big Hawaiian comes out. He's like, oh, no, you motherfuckers. No, we're going to get the motherfucking police. So we're like, fuck. You never seen us pack so fast. We packed in under 2 minutes. But in the time that it took us to pack and get onto the road, 3 cops showed up, and they were all Hawaiian. And I have never been interrogated. I've never been looked at the way I was. They looked at me like I was a piece of shit, like I was the scum of the earth, like I was the scourge of society, right? Like I was some welfare recipient that was just leeching off of the backs of taxpayers. And it was just like, dude, we're just like... We're trying to get back to our, it's just like, but the thing is what they didn't expect is we're a bunch of intelligent hippies, right? So we just kindly talked to them. And they eventually just is like, get the fuck out of here. They were going to arrest all of us. That was their plan, was to arrest us. They were just waiting for us to pop off or start that lefty bullshit that they were thinking we were going to do. We weren't lefties. We weren't leftists. We were just hippies who smoke weed and take mushrooms and see past all that shit. So we talked to them like human beings, and that's how we got let off. That was the only time I've ever had like a negative impact with police, but it had more to do with a culture that I was specifically in, was in the Hawaiian culture. And that was up in a part of the Big Island where they really don't like white people. The further south you go, the more they're cool, the more they're relaxed. Like Kalapana, for an example, the Puna area, Puna district, which is the county, Puna, is like the hippie capital of the world, pretty much. And they live pretty much hand in hand with the Hawaiian cultures down there. And there's different families that live in Hawaii, and all of them lay claim to being the rightful king or queen of Hawaii. But the actual king of Hawaii, I've met him. His name is Sam. Sam is he is the grandson of, I can't say her name, but she was the last queen that was overthrown thanks to us. That is his grandmother. And Sam owns what is called sovereign territory. So when you go way down to Kalapana, way at the very bottom on the northeastern coast of the Big Island, you'll get into sovereign Hawaiian land. And what that means is that the U.S. has no authority there. That means that the police of Hawaii, the state of Hawaii, cannot come onto this property unless it is absolutely like there's a fucking like massive fire or something like that. They have no authority there. Sam is, for all intents and purposes, the king of Hawaii. But obviously, no one can call him king because they are, in fact, a puppet state of America, but they're not America. Look, we never dissolved the Hawaiian kingdom when we took over. It's still a kingdom, at least on paper it is. And so I met Sam. Sam's a great guy, but he is respected as the king of Hawaii. And he has this bar down there. It's just this huge fucking thing, a huge event. Anyway, well, that's my spill on that. So the Puna Haze, look, I've had Puna Haze. I know a couple of guys that grow it. I'm not going to give their names or anything like that, but there's farms down in Puna. You see, it's really wet in the Puna area. It has the Puna district where I lived in has some of the most rainfall per year in anywhere in the world. It's not number one, but it's top 5. So it is like perfect growing conditions in certain spots for weed, because it'll be sunny and then rain will come in and it'll fucking just lambast it for 2 hours. And then it'll be right back to the same 89, 90 degree weather for the rest of the day. And just weed plants love it out there. They love it. So. Anyway, so that's just my spill. That's what I've got tonight for this. I got my charger came in for my camera. So now I don't have to worry about the battery dying. It's got like where you plug it in. So let's see. Murphy says, I hope to go live sometime this week. Yeah, please let me know when you're going to go live. Send me a text, Murphy, when you do, because I like to be there when you go live. 2 things I want to show is the laws being broken for the lockdown and the paperwork filed to sue. I want to make cinnamon jelly. All right, I'll be there. You let me know. And the American one says he has a cross with Puna Haze in it. Well, the beans anyway. I have to pop them. I don't know what that means. I have no fucking clue what you just said. So now this is a special cigarette. If you know what to look for. So Tim says, did you watch the vid Rena posted from that lawyer that's going after CDC? Who's Rena? I don't even know who that is. So, look, I'm really bad about following people. I'm subscribed to Marfugel, but I never watch his shit. I mean, I don't. I mean, I watch Friends Files because I believe much more in what Fringe is doing. But I don't really watch all these other videos with all these other people. Like, I know who Snaps is, but I mean, I don't understand his importance. Like when he'll come on like in Fringe's channel, everyone's like Snafu, and I'm like, well, who the fuck is this? I don't know who he is. So I don't follow anybody, so I don't know who they are. So yeah, what I have right here, this is 4 different strains. So what I'll do is when I'm buying tobacco, I'll buy it all at the first of the month because I try to limit my contact through people because I can tell you that there is a virus. It is real. It is, matter of fact, it has affected a lot of the places that I worked at. Nursing homes in Washington were some of the first nursing homes that were affected in Washington. I know people that still work there that have told me they've seen it. Some of my friends got it. It's real. I have no idea where I was going with that. I have no idea where I was fucking going with that. Anyway, tobacco. Oh, that's right. That's where I was going with that. Now I remember. So, because the virus is real, it's out there. I try to limit how often I interact with people. So I go and buy my tobacco from all the buyers that I buy from. And I'll get, they all know what I want. I'm very specific in what I want. And they're like, hey man, I got this and I got that. And I'll get an ounce of this and I'll buy 3 or 4 ounces, at the beginning of the month. of tobacco. And what I'll end up doing is I'll try one for a little bit, I'll try one for a little bit, I'll try one for a little bit, and then I might mix two together. I might mix another two together. And then at a certain point I get spicy and I put them all four or all five of them. So this has got 4 different strains of tobacco in it. And yeah, it kicks my ass, but in a good way. Let's see. Yeah, I look, so with Fringe Files, I'll tell you how I came across Fringe Files. If you go back to in January, like the moment I found out about this virus, I immediately took it seriously. I knew that it would become a pandemic. I made videos, I made plenty of shit, like I've got evidence to show it. But I immediately started posting raw videos of the people that were just dropping dead in Wuhan, right? Just falling over and shit like that. Stuff that was being censored. I immediately put them up. And I had never done anything on that like that on my channel before. And then I started like really like looking at channels that were talking about it. And I came across French Files one night. And I was like, well, who is this goofy looking chick? Just talking out of my ass. It's like, well, who is this chick? Right. Because she had her hat on and shit, or she had a big beanie on. I was like, who is this chick? But when I heard her speak, I was like, whoa, this chick's smart. She knows what she's talking about. And so I got to where I started believing and what she was doing. What she was doing was trying to build her channel up. God, she's almost at 3,000 subscribers now. And when I first interacted with her, she had just crossed 1,000. She was like maybe 1.1 thousand, right? And so I would always catch her streams and I started donating to her because, that's part of the reason why she does it, so that she can make money from it. And then eventually I just started interacting with her so much. I became a mod and we became, kind of like a family. So I know Fringe very well. But I don't like never plug myself in. That is, see, her channel is her channel. I'm a mod there. She's asked me a couple times to put my channel link in. And no, I don't care for that. I don't want to do that. So, but that's why a lot of people are surprised that I do this. Is I don't advertise. I don't care to. You'll find it if you want to find it, right? So, but I absolutely love Fringe's mind. She's a free thinker, and anytime that I can support, the fact that she's 23 is what amazes me. Is it shows you that age is not a factor unless you make it a factor. And so I'm one of her Patreons, right? I support her because I believe that she has the tools and she has the desire. I don't have the desire to do what she's doing. And if I really wanted my message to get out to people, the way to do that is to grow this channel. I would have to have thousands of people. And how I grow my channel is that I constantly plug myself in. I'd have to make videos every day. And look, I don't want that. So because I don't want it, I'll never have that. I don't have any desire to have that. But people like Fringe and people like Marfugel, they want their channel to grow. They want to get their message out and reach as many as people possible and make a living off of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you can do it, do it. I don't need to make money. I'm fine in that department. But when I see someone that's struggling, when I see someone that's giving it their all, I'm gonna throw 10, 20. I gave her $500 on one night, not for any other reason to help her get another computer. I can do that. I do it because I believe in what she's saying. And if I believe in somebody, I'm behind them. I'll support them. Right? In any way that I can. I support her as a mod. I support her as a Patreon. I support her as a fan, and I support her as a friend. So, and yeah, so there's that. All right, so I am going to cut it now, and I'm not going to do an outro. I am just going to cut it. So thank you for coming out, guys. Sorry if I missed any of your comments or stuff like that. I just kind of, got a little focused. But aloha ma'ahanapono. You guys have a great evening, and I will see you next time. Oh, I didn't hit it.